Hello, hello, hello. I'm on. Good morning. Thank you. I'm very old, so I'm going to sit. Is that okay? I'll sit if I don't fall down first. Vince Booker, my associate of 35 years and my muscle. Some places I go and do this presentation or something like it, we get in trouble. Things get thrown at us. We get driven off a campus one time. Maggie Kay is my assistant. She's going to give me a little card, so when I forget things, she'll write it down and give it in front of me. So these are my two helpers, Maggie and Vince. Vince, be seated. And Vince is armed and dangerous, so if anybody makes a run at the stage. Okay, so is it okay if I sit? Everybody hear me okay? I'm going to sit. Okay. So I was asked to come and speak, and I do this a lot, and I change it up every time, but I want to take a little different approach today, and I'm going to go back to the future. And I'm going to share with you some things that I think may be instructive and illuminating in terms of what's going on in healthcare today. Okay. For starters, I was 50 years in the hospital business, owned and operated hospitals through 5 different companies. Got out of that business 3 years ago when I thought what was happening with the healthcare delivery system and with hospitals was really not sustainable. We were heading in directions that just could not be sustained. And so what I wanted to do is to figure out how do I get outside healthcare and start making things happen or participate in things happening that don't happen now. And so through that, I've done Martin Ventures. We've invested in some companies, but I've basically sort of gotten not only outside the box, I'm off the reservation and on a different planet from where most people are when they talk about healthcare reform. That doesn't disturb anybody. That's okay. That's good. Everybody okay? Stay calm. The best advice I could give you, I guess, this morning would be if you're involved in healthcare and you make your living out of this one way or another, probably the best thing you could do is go home, put your feet up, have a drink, relax. Everything's okay. Nothing much is going to change, okay? Not much is going to change. We've talked about it for years and decades. It's going to change, it's going to change, it's going to change. Not much is going to change. So don't worry. It's not too much. We single payer, multiple payer, I don't know, block grants, who knows? Doesn't really matter. Because for the healthcare system, it's operating perfectly. It's operating perfectly. So for the hospitals, the insurance companies, the drug companies, the politicians, the payers, all it's working great for all those people and all the people who supply services to the healthcare industry. It's working great. It's fee-for-service driven. The customers don't have a way to tell us what they want or need. More importantly, they don't have a way to tell us when to stop to what they don't want. So we have free reign as providers of healthcare service to basically do to people whatever it is they'll let us do to them. And so kind of the goal of the system here over the last bit, and it's getting even more intense now, would be for a physician to have some primary care patients and then use those patients to push them into and through a series of healthcare services and locations as they exhibit various kinds of problems. So we got to get our hands on a patient first. That's what starts the whole system working. Get your hand on a patient, preferably an insured patient. Privately insured is best. Medicare's okay. Medicaid's not so good. Uninsured's not so good. But once we get the patient, then back kind of ignoring everything history has told us, ignoring all the evidence, as long as the money hold out, let's just do as much as we can to these people as long as we can, as long as they'll take it. And I'm hoping the time is coming when they're not going to take it anymore. So let me tell you a little of this ripped from the headline stuff. I'm going to go back 50 years for some things, and I'm going to come back 2 days ago for some other things. Just tell you kind of where we are and where my sense is of what about health care reform, which is not happening and doesn't show much evidence of coming to life. So I was born in 1942 in Florence, Alabama. You got a little brochure there about El Reposo Sanitarium. You were offered the chance to get one of you. You all got your brochures about El Reposo? Everybody got them? I'm going to refer to that a little bit later, so you're going to need to break that out. So I was born in 1942. That's when health insurance was invented after the war, when wages were frozen. Kaiser introduced the notion of, if we can't give our people raises, what can we do? And so they started giving them health insurance because they couldn't give them increased wages. So that basically is how it all got started. That led to then the creation initially of Blue Cross plans in all states, and eventually commercial insurance as we know it today. But I was born when all that was started. And now, some 75 years later, it's all still going even better than ever. And in spite of a lot of the evidence that says maybe it should have gone a different direction a long time ago. So a couple of other points I'll give you. When I came back to my family's healthcare business, which is El Reposo Sanitarium in 1964, after a family tragedy, I was there as the administrator of what was then El Reposo Sanitarium. It used to be a sanitarium, but then it became a nursing home because you have to do licenses to something. Your license is a nursing home or a hospital, but you have to have a license. Well, we didn't have a license. We just took care of people and got them better and didn't really have a license to do that. We did work with the medical profession, and that's what I was raised doing. When I was a little guy, I'm helping shave guys and put them on the colonic and walk them around and feed them and all that kind of stuff as they're getting better. So that's kind of how I grew up. We were on 25 acres in Florence, Alabama. We had cows and chickens and vineyards and orchards and garden. And we grew virtually everything that we, as the family and the staff, used in taking care of these patients, except for salt. We had to buy salt, but we had molasses. We did our own flour. We milled our own flour. And so we grew virtually everything we needed to support ourselves and these patients who were in our sanitarium. And to take you back to that date, and this started in 1920, so the El Reposo Sanitarium is on a 25-acre tract of land. It has the advantage of the country. It offers a system of scientific, rational treatments and diets that are unexcelled and at prices that are within reach of all. We have every modern convenience. We use the latest and best of scientific methods and the evidence. The following are a few of the diseases and conditions for whose treatment and cure our famous system of treatments and diets has justly earned us a name and reputation that have gone afar. Here's what we treated: neuritis, rheumatism, acidosis, autointoxication, disease of the heart, kidney and liver, nervous disorders in all their forms, digestive disturbances, high blood pressure, insomnia, and obesity. Now, when we look at why we spend so much on health care, isn't it everything on that list that's costing us so much in health care? That's what we set about to treat. All these various things that the health system had not treated very well. So we got people in chronic conditions. Maybe they were in, catatonic, whatever. They were overdosed, over-medicated, or whatever. And we got those people, and I got to help take care of them and feed them and shave them and get them outside in the sunshine and feed them healthy food, which we grew in our garden. And got to see those people in 6 or 8 weeks who were bedbound get up and walk around and actually begin to have productive lives again, and saw their chronic conditions reversed and greatly improved. Now that fell out of favor once you had to have a license to do that, and you had to be a hospital or a nursing home. So you couldn't just make people well from these very significant chronic diseases, and everything on that list is what we're fighting today, isn't it? Everything on there is what we're fighting today, and we say these are all our problems. And so what's the cure? Well, in our day, it was to be sure that every patient finds the causative factors, and when this is done, complete recovery follows with the aid of our system and non-toxic diet. We bring each patient back in harmony with the laws of their being, but the cures that are made permanent: fresh air, sunshine, pure water, cheerful thinking, proper rest, exercise are wonderful aids to health. Beautiful and comfortable surroundings with cheerful administration is priceless. This is what we give you. And the large majority of life ills are caused by improper diet. You heard anything about that lately? People eating the wrong stuff? Man, it's deathly quiet in here. The you don't have to go. We closed this place down. It's not there anymore, so I'm not going to take anybody there. The large majority of life ills are caused by improper diet. The sanitarium provides a diet that's helpful, nutritious, and delicious, simple but abundant, wholesomely prepared without meat, tea, coffee, or condiments. Foods served in a way to preserve the best of vitamins and minerals and salts, so necessary to healing and rebuilding of the nerves. And then we have trained dietitians. We engage in hygienic cooking. So cook good food, a lot of root vegetables, get them out in the sunshine, get them off their medications, and they get a lot better, until it became illegal to do that because you had to be a hospital or a nursing home. And you couldn't just have these group of people who were pretty much self-sufficient getting people better. So when I, in 1964, finished college and had to go back to operate that business because of family tragedy, I'll tell you, in 1964, when I was there, right out of college, our budget to take care of 40 people in what was then a nursing home, but was really a sanitarium. What would you guess the budget was for all expenses we had to take care of 40 people for a year in 1964? $50,000. That was the budget. Our family worked in the business. We had a few people who were day workers who came and helped, who made 50 cents an hour, 6 or 8 of those people. We grew the food. We took care of the patients. Patients, when they got better, began to want to work in the garden. So it was kind of a little self-contained community where people got better, and they left in good health when they came in bad health. But we didn't have prescriptions for people. They got off the prescription. We didn't do surgery. We didn't do anything magic, and we just used the evidence. And what we know about from the evidence today is half the health care in America is wrong. We're doing things that don't need to be done, or we fail to do those things that the evidence says should be done. We know that. The evidence says that today. The social determinants of health. We know that how people live and eat and their circumstances of their lives have great influence on what ultimately their health condition will be. So when people suffer from obesity, and when they're eating the wrong diet, when they don't get exercise, and they're not getting out in the sunshine, and then they're going to get depressed. Well, when you feel bad, you get depressed. And when you get depressed, you feel bad. You know, it's kind of this constant thing. So if you're not looking at the whole person, what are the causes of this? How do we break into the root cause and attack it somewhere? We're just treating symptoms. So we were doing that very successfully in the 40s and 50s and 60s, then it kind of became impossible to do that. So we were taking care of all those people for $50,000. And then I want to read you ripped from the headlines. I'm going to take you back to 1969 from Time magazine. 1969. Medicare came along in 65, and now we've got Time magazine 4 years later kind of summing up how are we doing. American medicine is the best in the world. Most Americans take this statement as an article of faith so long as they're in good health. So if you're in good health, it's great, but if you're not in good health, it's not so good. So the question we asked of the 130 million Americans who pay 500 million visits to the doctor, doctors wrote them 1 billion prescriptions, a drug bill of $3.5 billion in 1969. Did you realize that? $3.5 billion was the national drug bill. 27 million Americans go into the hospital, they spend 8.2 days, and it costs them a whopping $530. That's in 1969. U.S. medical care is $53 million a year, 5.9% of GDP, 7.5% of our personal income. These figures are far higher than the other Western world. U.S. citizens getting a fair shake? For an estimated 25% of the population, the answer is yes. For another 50%, medical care can be described as passable, but not as good as it could be. And for 25%, care is either inexcusably bad, given in humiliating circumstances, or non-existent. That's kind of the way it is today, isn't it? Top 25 are doing pretty good. The middle 50% is passable, and for about 25% it's inexcusable. Well, we knew that in 1969. We knew what caused it, and we knew we can fix it. The breakdown is not simply by social stratum. The rich do not necessarily get the best care, nor the poor the worst. If even one American doesn't have access to reasonable care, there's something wrong. This was said by the Surgeon General in 1969. This is really new stuff, isn't it? If even one American lacks access to a reasonable level of care, there's something wrong. As benefits a huge industry, U.S. medicine has an impressive plant, and many of its facilities are indeed outstanding. In research and technology, U.S. amazes and leads the world. We've got pediatric cardiology, we've got magnetic probe up at Columbia Presbyterian, we've got at Massachusetts General, we've got turn patients upside down to let gravity help them reposition detached retina. I don't think we turn them upside down anymore, but that used to fix it back in the day. That was the advance. But all these things were available only to a few. We ranked 13th in everything. One of the disparities in quality medical care between cities and rural. One man may get optimal care while another lives on the same street, enjoys the same access, may be handled in a wretched fashion. The wide disparity, this is a quote from St. Louis Hospital, with the wide disparity between the medicine that we know how to give and what we actually give, they're miles apart. And have they gotten closer together since 1969? No, they're more miles apart than they ever were. And so what Dr. Philip Lee said at the U.S. Department of Health, the U.S. has no system for delivery of health. It's a non-system. The indirect but basic reason for this is medicine, the only big business in which the ultimate customer has no control over what he buys. The doctor prescribes a drug for which the patient must pay willy-nilly. Everybody heard of willy-nilly? Man, this is a live audience. He orders a hospital admission. The patient rarely knows he has any choice. And so we go on to treat him for all these complaints. Most U.S. doctors do not accept that big picture and undeniable problems of medicine. And so the doctors hated it at first, and when they started getting paid, they liked it a little bit better. And the result of that, from before Medicare and after Medicare, doctors went from making about $24,000 to $35,000 as they grumbled about having to take these Medicare patients. And so doctors have done very well. Hospitals are big business. Yet according to Jerome Pollack at Harvard, they're a prime example of gross mismanagement. That's still true today, and I can give you evidence of that, very hard evidence. They're a prime example of gross mismanagement. Hospitals are run by boards of trustees made up of businessmen. The first objective of most hospitals is to operate in the black. They achieve this by paying little or nothing to interns or residents, and social justice calls up with them and have to pay them. And now we're up to 145 employees per 100 patients to 260 employees. That's how it's grown over a 5-year period of time as we've had more money go into the system. But consistent says that chapter and verse, they can, Commissioner of Health New York City can cite chapter and verse to show how hospitals have consistently lagged behind reality and then react in a who-me way. In a Madison Avenue spirit, hospitals play games with words. Blue Cross and most others pay for a semi-private room. In many hospitals, this may turn out to be a room with 4 beds. Make it a demi-private room. Occupancy is important to the hospitals. Counting overhead, it may cost the hospital $40 a day to maintain a semi-private room bed even when it's empty. It costs only about $3 to $5 a day more when it's occupied. A lot of fixed cost in healthcare. So when we try to go to bundles and outpatients and say, why don't we pay half of this surgery in a less expensive setting? What do the hospitals say? Oh, we've got too much overhead. We've got all these institutions. We've got to depreciate this. We've got all this equipment. Well, nothing's new. That's what they were saying back in 1969. All our cost is fixed. You ever heard of a business that's selling something to people who doesn't do well and says, the problem is not me, all my cost is fixed. The people out there are stupid and don't know what they're talking about. That's how healthcare works. Not that we need to change, but the people had no way to make it change. So this is what happened. Now I know this gets a little boring, but I'm going to keep popping it to you. These universal complaints, though petty, are symptomatic of depersonalization atmosphere of too many hospitals. Equally distressing is the noise, which makes sleep or even rest too difficult. And you know what? People get infections in the hospital. Well, wow, they're still getting infections in the hospital. Every community hospital is an empire unto itself. They have medical equipment, whether they need it or not. What they advised back then, instead of these expensive hospital rooms that cost you $500 for a 7-day length of stay, is what we ought to have. There should be a motel-type unit to which a man can drive his own car. This was back in the PC days. It was all men. Women didn't get sick in those days. They had the vapors. You drive your own car to go in for a checkup. You can live in a healthy human being, go to the cafeteria for meals, merely following the doctor's diet. And there should be a halfway house for patients not quite ready to go home who still need some care, but not 24-hour nursing care for themselves. Wow. Wow. There should be an outpatient pace when they don't need to be in the hospital, when they just need a checkup. And after they're out of the hospital, they need a halfway house. What's that called? Aftercare, postpartum, post-depression, post-discharge, right? We got to prevent readmissions. You know why we have to prevent readmissions? Because we had too many admissions to begin with. You take really sick people and treat them for a while, then put them back out on the street, you're going to get a lot of readmissions. But we never worry about why did we have the admission in the first place? Why didn't we prevent the admission? There's not much money in that, as you well know. So Walt McNerney, I knew Walt McNerney. I had the pleasure to shake his hand and talk to him. It was Blue Cross Association. It's firmly accepted that no one is going to be without care who needs it. That battle is over, right? He says that battle is over, Blue Cross. Questions then are, how shall it be delivered? How shall it be paid for? So I could go on and on and on, and all this is just like it is today. Just like it is today. And nothing has changed. And we thought it was a great problem in 1969. We're trying to get back here to the compassion of the old-time family doctor. So that's what it used to be. Let's fast forward. So that was 69. So now what are we doing in 2017? Anybody see in the Wall Street Journal how to fix the ER? So what it says here is we could fix the ER. They don't need to be doing all this triage, that they ought to run it a different way. They have endless forms, inconsistent care. Well, wow. Guys, who knew a hospital was inefficient? Did we just learn this? If you've ever taken somebody to the hospital, you knew it. So what can we do about that? I'm skipping over all the good stuff. Eliminate details that waste time. Help patients with minor complaints quickly. And those who probably just need tests, don't put them in the hospital. Schedule surgeries evenly. Ease admission from the ER to the hospital. Woo! You're in the same building. You go to the ER, right? You got this little yellow band on, and now Millman says you ought to be in the hospital. You get a blue band on, and you start all over again. Isn't that a real breakthrough for an industry to say, if you're treating somebody over here on the first side where they came in to be diagnosed, and now you got to treat them, let's start all over again. How would that work if McDonald's worked that way, or anybody who sold food or services worked that way? You're out of business, right? That's how hospitals work. And we say, we're not paid enough money. Oh, we're not paid enough money. We're paid so much money, we've gotten so lazy and so bad about knowing what needs to be done and how to do it that I'm afraid it may be too late to fix it. I'm trying to fix it. It may be too late. And then you can anticipate backups with software, and then we have a bunch of EMRs that don't talk to each other, and then we have a medical record that's all dispersed and diffused and doesn't go to anybody, right? Here's another one, September 24. Big Pharma can't lose. We're trying to modify the health care, right? Of all the promises President Trump made, controlling drug prices might have seemed the easiest to achieve. An angry public overwhelmingly wants change, including they've got these 1,000% increase in prices. What we need has been lost amid rancorous debates over replacing Obamacare, stalled amid roadblocks via lobbying, industry cash. There's a very aggressive lobby that's finding any and all means to thwart any reform to a system that has produced very lucrative profits. Wow. People have got a gold mine, and we, the public, will let them get away with it. They want to keep getting away with it. Give us a lot of money to do not very much, and don't bother us. We're professionals here, you know. Meanwhile, there are 24 drug bills aimed at curbing costs. They have bipartisan support. Here's some other, in bill form, banning patients for pills. Here's a radical idea. Don't pay for people to take pills that simply modify existing medicine without significant clinical benefit and adjusting prices accordingly. I think a market economy would fix that, wouldn't it? We have nothing like a market economy in healthcare. And it's not that we have single payer or Aetna and Blue Cross. The whole system is the problem. And then we as politicians and policymakers go to the people who created the problem, who live in this $3 trillion pot of gold, and say, please help us fix this system. Please don't charge so much money for so bad outcomes. And they say, we're doing everything we can. We're doing everything we can. And so we know with $3 trillion spent, we need to get $1 trillion out of health care. So we go around the room, and I tried to do this 8 years ago, and that's one of the times I got thrown out. I said, why don't we as an industry say, why don't hospitals and drug companies and insurance companies all get together and say, hey, enough money's being spent. Why don't we drop our own little vested interest and come to the table with solutions about how to fix this? But no, that does not happen, does it? You've got all this in silos. So pharma wants what pharma wants. They don't care what's happening in the hospital. Hospital wants what hospital wants. They don't care. The insurance companies, most of all, don't care because they'll just collect your premium, spend 20% of it telling you why you're not going to get the service or the bill is wrong, and spend 80% of it on your care. The CEO makes $25 million a year. The investors get big dividends, and shareholders make ridiculous profits. And they say, we have to leave this little county in Arizona. Our company's business model does not permit us to continue to sell insurance here. Wow. I'd hate to be the CEO of a company that said, I took $25 million home. I got these huge profit margins. Healthcare needs to be fixed. And my only thing is, all the things you're talking about don't fit my existing business model. Please, go away. Don't talk to me single payer. Don't talk to me real competition. Let's keep it like it's going. And healthcare interests in Washington collectively, I'm running out of time, they spend a lot of time here, $500 million a year to keep it just like it is. And so things are rocking right along. So that's something ripped out of the headline. Here's another ripped out of the headlines that'll make you a little bit afraid. How many here are fans of Zuckerberg? Well, I read a little story here, Maureen Dowd's column, September 24. Anybody happen to see this? The idea of Mark Zuckerberg's running for president was always sort of scary. Wow, we've got Trump, and now we get the Zuck. It was always a little scary. I mean, maybe a 33-year-old founder doesn't know how to fix everything for everybody in the whole world in every circumstance, but 2 billion people have said, Zuck, help us figure it out, buddy. Sort it out for us. Here's all this information I'll give you. Mine my information. Figure out how to sell it to people. Create this enormous wealth. Zuck's going to be worth more than $100 billion, right? Taking what was supposed to be a dating site so he could get laid in Boston into this business. Where did I go wrong? I had the same initial incentive he did, but I never figured out the solution. I was shaving old men, giving them showers, and feeding them good food. Shame on me. I should be the Zuck. Whoa. Sheryl Sandberg says, we never intended or anticipated this functionality being used this way, right? The whole Russian thing, all these ads. Oh, we didn't know it'd be used this way, right? Oh, we didn't know this. The Sandberg admission was also game, set, and match for Elon Musk, who's been sounding the alarm for years about the danger of Silicon Valley creating AI and children getting out of control and hurting humanity. His pleas for safeguards and regulations have been mocked as hysterical, irresponsible by Zuck. Pretty irresponsible if you want to take all this away from me, right? So at Facebook and Google, they're either naive or cynical and greedy and thinking it's enough just to have a vague code of conduct that says don't be evil. As Elon said when he set for Vanity Fair piece, it's great when the emperor's Marcus Aurelius, is not so great when it's Caligula. So let's hand it over to the Zuck. He can fix it all. He may. He's going to be the next guy we see. But let's don't do it to him. Let me tell you another place we could look. Let's go to Jeffrey Bezos, right? Amazon, they figured out it all. Why couldn't I invent a business that makes me a 100 billionaire that has never made money, that keeps taking money from people on the promise of this is what we're going to be able to do? And the promise becomes self-fulfilling if enough people get giving you the money. And this guy's laughing all the way to the banks, which can't even hold all the money he's got, right? Because he's still saying, we're going to deliver everything to everybody, and he's taking over. The grocery store, their stocks went down $10 when Bezos gets in the grocery store business, taking it over from an aged hippie who's losing market share. Well, he said the aging hippie didn't have it right. This is not about this. This is a different whole deal here, an opportunity. This distribution and having all these stores, that's a different opportunity. It's not selling healthy foods to people for high prices. It's not all paycheck. What do they call it? Whole paycheck. Not that. So let's don't go to the Zuck. Let's go to Amazon. And let's let Jeff take it over. So this article says here, this is again ripped out of the headlines, September 23. For these big giants, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, they've added $2 trillion to their market cap. And all of them want to take over the world. We know how Amazon wants to do it. Apple makes wonderful hardware. We know how they want to do it. We know how Facebook's want to do it. We know how Google wants to do it. We know what their motives are. We know what they are. But Google seems to have a market position in search. Apple is in hardware. Today's fastest growing sector is in cloud computing. But with the acquisition of Whole Foods, Amazon will likely become the fastest growing online and bricks and mortar retailer. The whole grocery sector with 612 billion in sales has been disrupted overnight by Amazon. One guy owns it, and another guy owns it, and now the industry's worth 600 billion worth. Why? People are afraid he may have figured out how to fix it. What if a Bezos shows up in healthcare? What if somebody showed up who actually knew how to fix this? And you could even lose money for years while you're fixing it. You know that might happen. I'm old, but I ain't dead. Many firms would be much more innovative if they were given a license to operate without the nuisance of profitability. How do you like that? Many firms would be much more innovative if they were given a license to operate without the nuisance of profitability. Amazon has thus had enormous capital on hand to invest in delivery networks, the crucial last link, the last doorstep. Something is deeply amiss when a company can ascend to almost $500 billion in market value, the fifth most valuable in the world, without paying any tax. They don't pay any tax. And we're saying, go, Amazon. Give me my buck in 2 seconds instead of 3 minutes. Because Amazon's more efficient than other retailers and transact the same amount of business, half the number of employees. If they continue to grow its business by $20 billion a year, the annual toll for jobs of merchants, buyers, cashiers will be in tens of thousands. So I recently spoke at a conference after Bezos made his case for a universal guaranteed income. So here's Bezos' design, right? Let's give a universal guaranteed income to everybody. It's tempting to admire his progressive values and concern for the public welfare, but there's a dark implication here too. It appears that the most insightful man in the business world has given up on the notion that our economy or his firm can support that pillar of American identity, a well-paying job. Doesn't the future look bright? But it's okay for health care. We don't face any of those headwinds at all. Everything's going along just swimmingly. A revolution in EMS. So we got these ambulances running around, a lot of highly trained people on them. And now with telemedicine and all the equipment we can put on there, actually an EMS vehicle properly equipped is about as good for about 95 or 8% of the things as Vanderbilt University Emergency Center. And you have less chance of getting an infection in that thing. The worst that can happen is you're going to bump into somebody else driving too fast to get to the hospital so you can get the infection there. That's the worst thing that could happen in an ambulance. But they have all these trained people driving around. They said much of this best equipment is really being wasted because we can really do advanced things right out of these vehicles. You can rush right to somebody's house and do all this stuff. They don't have to die on the way to the hospital. In addition to state-of-the-art equipment, Mayo's Emergency Medical Service tests a number of EMS, including capnography, monitoring service, placement of breathing tubes, and measure concentration of carbon dioxide and exhaled air. You do that before you get to the hospital. And we got quick clotting bandages now for blunt trauma. And what can amount to a sea change for EMS policymakers are looking at having a so-called community paramedic team provide preventive medical care. So your old EMS worker is going to come to your house, make regularly scheduled health calls. Who would have thunk? Communities are treating patients at their home, including failed managed chronic disease, natural provider care outside the hospital. So among the non-emergency calls that they respond to are shortness of breath, weakness, fatigue, and dehydration, cuts and abrasion, abdominal pains, low-grade fever, cold-like symptoms, urinary problems, and minor falls in the home. That's what they can take care of. This other big stuff, we need big people to take care of. So it's a very good picture, isn't it? So EMS is going to take over the health care in the home, and Bezos is going to work it from his angle, and Zuck's going to work it from his angle. And now, we've got the 1-minute cure to healing virtually all diseases. It's well documented here. This is all really heavily well documented. This 1-minute cure of how to cure all diseases. If you don't know about it, you ought to read up on it. It's the greatest healing miracle of all. And what does it do? It goes back to natural methods. We need oxygen in our system. We need hydrogen peroxide. There's some basic things we need. And we can prevent some of these diseases. Wow, that's breakthrough. I'm not even a scientist. I can figure that out. Wrong patient errors called common. Woo-hoo. A patient in cardiac arrest was mistakenly not resuscitated because clinicians confused him with the patient who had a do not resuscitate order on file. Oops. Sorry about your papa. And he was found dead in his hospital room the next day. No problem. He was in a good place. He was safe. Family were around him. Put up their prayers. He's in a better place now. This is a huge problem the general public's not arrested of. The opportunity for ID mix-ups are increasing. We're doing more lab tests, more imaging, more procedures, more transactions through the system. And of the mix-ups studied, 91% of the mix-ups were caused before patients were harmed. Thank God. Only 10% of these mix-ups led to actual patient harm. Isn't that great? You know what hospitals have their compliance record down to on medication? Do you know how often hospitals accurately give the medication prescribed at the right time to the right person, the right time with no contraindication? You know how often that happens? It happens 90% of the time. Isn't that really rewarding? Only 10% of the time if you're in the hospital. Well, I invest in a company that takes people who qualify for Milliman. We take them out of the hospital, they go directly to home, and they get that care at home. And the interesting thing I have to fight is, how do I convince somebody you don't really need to be in the hospital? If you go there, a lot of bad things could happen to you, and we can do everything for your home that you need to have done. The belief was, if I can drag myself up to the hospital, it's okay. Well, if you've dragged yourself up to the hospital, you're on the way, you know where? Because lots of bad things are going to happen to you in the hospital. Lots of bad things. So you get an ED, and I give you a little alarm. Oh, you don't need to go there. COPD, 3 days. DRG's this amount of money. I can take you home and do it for half the price. Same doctor, same nurse, everybody, all the technicians you need, right there in your home. And here's what you'll avoid between where you got diagnosed in the emergency room and getting admitted. That link there where you have to get handed off from the emergency room to inpatient care. So here's what you'll miss. You'll miss getting that other band put on. You'll miss getting asked all those same questions you were asked before by a new team of people who seem not to know that an hour earlier you gave all that information to their system. It's in there. I have to go now, my guy does my colonoscopy every 2 years. And I finally got up the nerve. You know, you can't really question a medical professional. But as I was filling out my form this year, I finally had enough. I said, don't you know my daddy's still dead? He died in 1987. Why am I filling out forms saying daddy's still dead? Is anybody here alive? Maybe I'm the only one troubled by all this stuff. Thank God I'm not a stand-up comic. I'm a sit-down comic. So you go down there, you get the band on, you get taken up. So you might get an infection. You might get the wrong medication. You might have the wrong limb taken off. You're going to have a noisy room. You're going to get crappy food in a bed that's high and you don't know, and you're old, you're on medication, and you're confused, and the bathroom's around here. You know how to get to the bathroom in your house. You can feel your way, right? I'm old and dottery, but I can feel my way to the bathroom in the dark in my house. I don't fall getting to the pot. But if I get out of the bed in the hospital room and I'm a little bit confused and the bed's a little higher than I think, either I fall getting out of the bed or I fall on the way to the bathroom, and guess what happens? 6 months later, a lot of these people are dead because that hip fracture is what started their ultimate downfall to death. And you don't get that great chance-taking opportunity if you go directly to your home. You're not going to fall out of your bed at home. You're not going to get an infection. You're not going to get bad food. You're not going to hear loud noises. And we're not going to charge you a lot of money and surround you with people. You're there with people you know. The people you know come in and treat you. And I have to talk people into being able to do that because the hospital's where I'm supposed to be. How brainwashed have people gotten to believe the hospital's a safe place to be? It's a horribly unsafe place to be. That's why I'm not in the business no more. I want to do it a different way. I think if enough people come up with this, I've got a number of things I'm involved in, some ground movements, to try to get things to move in a different direction, to say we've got to ignore the system we have. It's designed to replicate and repeat itself, which it's doing beautifully. We talked about the drug companies, right? Listen to what happened to the insurance companies under Obamacare. So Obamacare comes in 2010. Insurance companies were told, we don't know what the underwriting will be for all these millions of people that are going to come in under Obamacare. So what we're going to do, we're going to give you a guarantee for the first 3 years you can't lose money, right? That was the deal with the insurance companies to get Obamacare passed. You can't lose money on Obamacare in the first 3 years. And we're going to create these corridors, we're going to create these side rails. So if some plans make more than the money they need, we'll put it back into a pool. Some plans lose money because they had bad underwriting. We'll give you money out of that pool. But if the pool doesn't balance up, you can back up to the Treasury, and we'll give you federal money to make up that loss. That's what the insurance companies were promised. You know why they're pulling out of place all over the world now? Why are they pulling out of everywhere? Because the promise got broken, right? Marco Rubio said, wait, you said this is budget neutral because the fines we have are going to equal all the money we didn't make up to the losers. It's going to be revenue neutral, so let's don't let them back up to the federal treasury. That door is locked. Congress is not allocating any money for this makeup to the health insurance companies if they don't get well. And I was following this very closely, and I was trying to do something with Blue Cross in Tennessee at the time. I'd gone down there and met with them, and they were moaning at the time. Guess what happened that first year, I think it was 2013, when the insurance companies were going to get made well for those losses they got in Obamacare. Do anybody know what they got? 12 cents on the dollar. They didn't get the 100% bailout. They got 12 cents on the dollar, so now they're leaving. Farmers getting theirs, hospitals getting theirs, everybody's getting theirs. And who's really getting it in the ear is the person, the individual, who has a disjointed system, does not care about that person in the collective, has these silos of information. Ed and others here working about those silos of information, a lot of work going on. We need the individual health record. I don't need to be marching around all these places I've gotten care to assemble my record. It's my record. Let's start with it's my record. I'm the portal. So if you're going to treat me, come through my portal and I'll let you know what you need to know. Send me the information back, and then collectively I can use that information to better inform how to make health care decisions. Pretty radical, isn't it? It's very doable. The technology is there to do that today. But I don't have a lot of faith in the system. I shouldn't say that. See, I've been trying to do this for decade after decade after decade in various environments. I couldn't do it as a hospital guy. I thought maybe I could do it there. And I may not be able to do it outside the hospital environment. The opportunity is there for us to have every man, woman, and child taken care of from birth to death for about half what we spend now. The unfortunate truth is you got to pry all those trillions of dollars out of somebody's grasp. Somebody now. Every dollar of expense in health care is somebody's income. And so when I tried to have this little kumbaya thing that says, why don't we come collectively and figure out how to solve it, and let's all give up our self-interest and figure out how to make it better, nobody wanted to turn loose of their share. No, not just take them to these other guys. Don't take them from me. Farmer, give me mine. Take them to the hospital. Oh, no, take them to the insurance company. Oh, we can't take them from me. And so everybody played musical chairs. No, it's an old game. When you didn't have money and you're poor in the country, you played musical chairs. Somebody played the piano. And you have chairs down there, you have all these people marching around. And so you have one more person than chairs. You have 10 chairs and 11 people. And you march around, you're not permitted to touch the chairs. And then when the music stops, you get your butt on a chair, you're safe. But one person doesn't get on a chair. There's grappling that goes on, there's elbowing that goes on. The old and the weak get lost earliest. Grandma get out of the way, the little kid, they're out early. But the burly guys, they stay a little bit later. But you keep taking the chairs down, you still have one more people marching than playing for the musical chair. That's what we're dealing with now. The chairs are coming down. Everybody's crushing the elbows. Nobody wants to be left off the few remaining chairs. When it's 10 and 9 and 8 and 7 and 6 and 5, a lot of people are not going to find a chair to sit on. And that's where I think we're headed. So I've used up most of my time. There is time, I think, for Q&A if anybody has a question. I have lots of answers, as you may have noticed. With that, I'll sort of wind up here and say thank you for letting me be here. I was thrown out of medical school. That's why I have my muscle here with me. I was asked in a medical school presenting some of these ideas that my great-grandfather helped start in the early 1900s. My great-grandfather helped start that medical school, which was then a sanitarium. I was thrown off that campus for saying, this guy's come in, he's told us that healthcare is horizontal, not vertical. He's told us we shouldn't replace this big old hospital with another big old hospital across the parking lot. We should get out into these communities around us, put healthcare horizontal, go to people in their boxes and under the overpass and give them health care there. Don't expect them to come into your high, shiny buildings where they have to pass security to come in to get health care. We're not going to reach them there. Go reach them where they are. And I got asked, I got told, I didn't get thrown off, but when I left, the word went out to all the faculty, all the staff, all the administration, do not have any more contact with this man. I was out there to talk to him about doing a planning project, about how they might spend their money more intelligently. And I didn't get very far. They banned me from campus. That's why I've got Vince here now. Any questions? Was that a load? Now, you've all got your little El Reposo Sanitarium brochure, right? You've all got it. Take it, keep it with you. It's not in business anymore. You'll notice the number on the front there was 733. My Aunt Mildred was the telephone operator. She was the one that pulled remember Miss Ringy Dingy, all full laughing. So my Aunt Mildred was the telephone operator. So when I was to get on the phone, I'm trying to, my voice, because she wants to talk when I get on the phone. She's a big talker. She listens in on all your calls. The only hope you have when she hooks you up with somebody, that somebody else is doing something more interesting than you are. So she'll listen on them and not you. You hear the little click, click when she's getting on and off. So you always just kind of scats around to see where the best news is. So I called Aunt Mel and said, 165R. Charles Neal, is that you? Why are you calling, Johnny? It's Aunt Mildred. Our number is 733. You see what we did, why we did it, how we did it, who we did it to. It worked pretty well. The evidence is there. Evidence is even stronger today that all these old things work. So will we change the system in some radical way? Or we just say, oh, we got to cover more people. Everything's being talked about now is not a solution to the healthcare problem. The healthcare problem is only solved by individuals standing up and saying, we ain't going to take it no more. And I think if there could be a movement for healthcare rights, like civil rights or women's rights or any other kind of rights, and people had a voice and a way to be able to communicate what their concerns are, that things could be moved along. And that's what I'm standing up trying to help do. Out of time, out of space. Thank you very much.